Group is going to work on mini activity 2.2, where you're going to start building your business proposal. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working on the business proposal and adding to it each week, which is going to help you to be able to complete the business proposal without feeling too overwhelmed. So, in order to get this started, we're going to just kind of take a look at which sections you're going to be doing. So, first off, you're going to be doing your email heading. That's going to include to, from, CC, BCC, date, and subject. You should have that already mostly completed from mini activity 1.1, where you can literally just copy and paste it into the top of the document. Remember, this is a heading, not a header. So, it should not repeat on every page. It should just be at the top of the page, of the first page. The date that you should use should be the final date that the proposal is due. And we'll actually go over what goes into all of these headings here in just a minute. So don't worry about that. You do want to make sure to add the major headings that will appear in your final proposal. And again, I'll show you an example of what that looks like here in just a second. Then you're going to physically complete the current situation section, and we'll talk a little more about what all goes in that section. And you're going to complete the specific objective section. So basically, the first two sections of the proposal. Last but not least, you're going to begin working on your reference page. So anything that you use in these first two sections that you're putting into mini activity 2.2, you're going to make sure that all of the references are included in that reference page. Okay. All right. So there is additional information in the instruction sheet that just kind of walks you through everything, including what all needs to be added here. For your formatting. I think to really recognize is that you want to make sure that you do get the right font and font size for the majority of the paper, and you do that before you add anything else to the page. You also want to make sure your spacing is correct. So you're going to do single space for the entire document, including your reference page, with 8-point after spacing for the paragraphs. And you won't use any extra enter keys to create it blank lines. You're just going to let the 8-point after spacing do its job. Margins should be 1 inch on all sides. And then for those headings, we are going to create level headings. So first level 1 is going to be 14-point bold. Level 2 heading would be 13-point bold. And level 3 heading would be 12-point bold. Okay. You do need to have a page break. It is required to have a page break before the reference page. And the header should be empty with no text and no page numbers in the header. However, the footer needs to have left aligned group number, team members' last names. Centered, you want to have your course number and which section you're in. And then right aligned should be your page number auto adjusting. And we're actually going to do this together so you can see how to put that together. All right. You're going to have two submissions for this. One person from your group needs to submit for the entire group. But then, in order for you guys to get your individual grades, because most of this assignment is individually graded, you need to submit your copy of the document, which should look identical to the group submission, except for your portion that you worked on should be highlighted. All right. And then that's how we're going to make sure that everybody gets fair grades. Okay. So you will see two submission links. Let me know if you have any questions about that. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So what I've done here is I have created basically a mock document, and it just gives you inserted information of what should go in these sections and what you need to do. Okay, so first and foremost, when I talk about heading versus header, if I double click up here, you'll see this is the header. Anything I put in here would then be duplicated on every single page. And we don't want that. We just want that heading to be at the top. So we're not going to put anything in the header. All right, we're going to leave that blank. And then we're just going to put our email heading right here at the top. So you're going to put to, and then who it's to is who is your primary audience. So really think about who is the primary audience for this business proposal. And that is who you want to put in the to line. Yes, you're going to have to go and find their email address. From can only be from one person. So make sure you have your primary person that's submitting for the group put in that from line. CC, all team members should be included on that CC, and anyone else you think might need to be included, you can also put there as well. For your blind carbon copy, I want you to think about, does anyone else need to be blind carbon copied on this business proposal? If they do, put them here. If they don't, then that'll be blank. Date, this should be the date of the final report is due in our class, so make sure you include that date. You can find that on the syllabus. For your subject line, you want a clear and concise subject line that is easy to understand and really incorporates what the main idea of the business proposal is. Next up, we've got our heading. So here you can see this is a level 1 heading, right? It's a main heading. So it needs to be 14-point font and bold. Okay. And then what I would do is I would go through and put all my headings first and make sure my font is correct. This is another main heading. So this should be 14-point font bold. Coming down further, we have proposed solutions. This is another main heading. So you guessed it, 14-point font and bold. Implementation plan is actually part of the proposed solution. So this is a secondary. So that means that this time we're going to go 12 or 13. Oops, I got to handwrite it in. Sorry. 13-point font and bold. Cost analysis is another secondary. So that is 13 and bold. And then my conclusion is a main heading. So that is going to be a 14-point and bold. Now, if you were to do any additional subheadings underneath implementation plan and cost analysis, those would be 12-point font and bold. Okay. All right. As we continue down, we have references. References has to be separated by a page break, which is why it's all the way down here, but it is a main heading. So it's going to be 14-point and bold. Okay. And that takes care of that. Next up, we have the footer. You can double click on the bottom anywhere to open up the footer. And what you're going to do is you're going to put in your page number. We want it at the bottom of the page and we want it on the right-hand side. So we're going to put that page number in first. And by doing it that way, it's going to automatically update which page it is. I don't know why that went to the header. Let's try again. I must have done it wrong. All right, so page number, bottom of the page. There we go. I don't know. I must click the wrong button. All right, so now that that's in there, I'm going to now type in what should appear way over here, okay? And if we go back to our instructions sheet, we can see left aligned should be group number and team members' names. All right, so we're going to go here and we're going to go group number. So we're going to say group, let's say 1 dash Smith, Miller, Jones, and Williams. Okay, now looking at this, I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't get that in there right because we want those in alphabetical order, right? So it should be Jones, Miller, Smith, and then Williams. All right, easy fix, easy fix. All right, next up, we're going to do a tab, and then we're going to do our course number and section. So this is business 20401 dash, and then you're going to put whatever your section is. So keep it simple. I'm going to put 01I, but you need to make sure that it's your section, not just this one. Then we're going to hit tab. Now this is pretty close together. So I am going to shrink the name size in order to give there enough space to make sense. And that is totally fine. Let's just go down to 10. Now you can see it separates it off enough that we can see each one of those sections. Now, because I put it in the footer, that is going to appear on every page. Okay? All right, so that should answer those questions. So now let's get into the nuts and bolts here, okay? So the current situation is the meat and potatoes of what we're trying to understand about what's actually happening. So here you're going to explain what is currently happening and provide evidence with in-text citation that proves the importance of student activity to improve student retention, student success. So what you're going to be doing is, first off, you're going to be summarizing PFW's current and existing student involvement opportunities. So this is like listing out what kinds of clubs, sports, activities, programs, etc. that PFW has. And it doesn't necessarily have to be every single one. You could say there are X number of clubs, right? Maybe there's 30 different clubs available. There are I'm pulling numbers out of the air, right? 15 sports. There are so many intramural sports. There are activities at the housing edition, those kind of things. So you're just kind of giving us a general idea of what all PFW has currently available for students to be involved in. Then you're going to identify current challenges or barriers that are limiting students from participating. And here again, this is going to be where you have done some research and you understand why students are not participating and what those barriers are, what's stopping them from being a part of it. Like we talked about before, maybe it's commuting, maybe it's that they quote unquote don't have time, maybe it is a misconception of the importance of it. Could be all kinds of things, work, right? Family, you name it. Then you want to explain why increasing involvement matters. And here you definitely have to include that support by research that really proves that student involvement is going to increase student retention and student success. Incorporating measurable criteria that is numerical in value, right? Showing that in such and such research, they showed a I don't know, 20% increase, right? I'm pulling numbers out of the air. You've got to use your research of student retention in school. So whatever it is, whatever research you found, this is where you want to put that in that proves that. So you're going to incorporate findings from like mini activity 2.1 that you did, where you have your retention numbers, you have increases in GPA and academic success, your barriers and awareness of issues, right? So, do students even know that increasing their activity on school campus can actually increase their grades and their desire to do well in school? Okay, their motivation. And finally, you want to make sure that you are incorporating the correct APA in-text citations in this section. I should see several in this section. There's a lot of information here. All right. Once you get through that current situation, just really describing and in detail what's currently going on, then we're going to move on to specific objectives. And in this section, you're really talking about explaining what the goal is, right? What is the entire goal of this business proposal? What are you trying to achieve? And you're going to define it using SMART goals and clearly define how you're going to measure your success. So, to be a little more specific, we're going to first off clearly state the goals. And remember, the purpose it, to propose the purpose here is to propose a solution that will increase student participation in club sports and activities at PFW in order to improve student retention and student success. Like that right there, that is your whole reason for doing this proposal and needs to be incorporated as part of this goal. You're going to identify barriers your proposal will focus on, right? And remember, there are so many different kinds of barriers, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your specific idea is going to accommodate all of the barriers. So simply define and identify which barriers your proposal will specifically focus on and talk about why that barrier is the important one for you to focus on. Why did you choose that barrier to focus on? Then you can explain how your group is going to measure success because anytime you implement something new in a workplace, you have to be able to say, okay, so this is what we're trying. And in order for us to feel like this was successful, this is the goal of where we want to be. And then how are we going to determine that we got there? Okay, so a lot of times it's going to be something numerical. That's the easiest way to do it. So, percentage increase in participation might be an option. Increase in event attendance could be an option. Number of new students, organization members, right? So, the actual member count. It could be survey results showing improved sense of belonging. So it could be a whole variety of things. This is just a couple of examples, but just understand that these are examples of what you need here. You need to understand how are you going to actually measure it, and you need to make sure that that measurement is an attainable measurement, right? You can't just say something like, "We're going to measure it by um, seeing if people show up." Well, show up to what, right? And how many people is it going to need to be in order for it to be an increase that is substantial? Are you looking for a 10% increase, a 20% increase? What are you looking for? Um, then you want to make sure that you are framing your goals as SMART goals. So we want them to be very specific. What exactly will change? Measurable. It has to be data. It has to be in a data format that you can actually collect data on. Is it attainable? Is it a realistic goal? Is it a realistic measurement? How are you going to actually achieve that measurement? Because you can't necessarily send somebody to every single meeting and have them take an attendance. So how are you going to actually achieve that goal or that measurement? It needs to be relevant, right? How does it connect to retention and success? Be sure that it makes that connection. Make sure that your goal or your measurement is actually looking at how is your idea being implemented to create improvement. And then, of course, we need a timeline. We can't have it open ended, right? Eventually, someday, 5, 10, 20 years down the line, more people will join clubs. That's not realistic. That's not time bound. We need something that is going to be very specific. So, when you say your goal is to increase student participation in activities, over the course of the next 6 months or semester, and increase per semester over the next 4 semesters by, I don't know, 2%, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve based on, and the way you're going to get this number, right? What you want is going to be based on what the expected increase should be from your current situation. So when you went and you found the information that proves that student involvement increases student success, what was the percentage there? Because that's the percentage that you're trying to get to. How long did it take them to get there? That's the time bound that you're trying to utilize. And so you need to make those connections between the current situation and the specific objective SMART criteria. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Um, and if you do have questions, feel free to reach out and I'm more than happy to help you with that. All right. So you do need to make sure that these headings are here, but we're not going to fill those in right now. For now, these are literally going to look just like this when you submit it. And then we'll be doing proposed solutions, implementation and cost analysis next week. Okay. And then the conclusion will finish up in 2 weeks. All right, now your reference page does have to be on its own page. You can click insert and insert a page break right there in order to create this page break for the reference page. Do not just hit the enter key until it's on another page. You will lose points for that. It must be a page break. All references that you've used so far must appear here in this references, and in-text citation should appear above in the body where you've already written. Okay, so what are a couple of notes here? List all sources that you've gathered so far that you're using, and then you will continue to add your sources to this reference page as we continue to work through the process and through the document. You do want to make sure that all references have in-text citations somewhere included up in the body of the paragraph. Your references should be in alphabetical order, and you do need to have a hanging indent. An example of an APA reference is listed here, and this is a hanging indent. That first line is all the way to the margin, and the secondary or any additional lines are all half an inch in. One way that you can create this, a really easy way, is if you turn this ruler on. So go to View, and right here is Ruler. You can turn that on and off. And then go back to home, and you're going to see right here this ruler. It has these little arrows up and down. So when you first create it, it is going to look like this. Okay. And everything's going to be right there left aligned. In order to do the hanging indent, you're going to grab a hold of that lower arrow and move it over to that half-inch line. So right there in the middle, and that creates your hanging indent. Okay. All right, so that should pretty much give you an idea of what is expected for this mini activity. It's going to give you a really good start to your entire business proposal and get you on a good foundation ready to do that proposed solution section. Make sure you're thinking about what your idea is. What solution are you going to be presenting? Because that's going to help you a ton in creating that specific objectives and really understanding what barrier are you trying to overcome and how are you actually going to measure that. Okay. And then next week, we'll actually start the writing process for your proposed solutions section. All right, guys, that's all that I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the project. And like I said, if you do have any questions, feel free to email me. And I am always available via text. If you want to text me and let me know you're having a problem, I can check that email a little bit quicker for you or look specifically for your email. All right, guys, thanks so much. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.